Auburn coach Doug Barfield met the SEC Skyriders tonight in a session that became a little bit stormy at one point. While fielding questions on Auburn's NCAA probation, Barfield was almost verbally attacked by John Lashley of WTVF television in Nashville. Lashley became a bit emotional and unprofessional, demanding to know when Barfield and other coaches were going to do something about overzealous alumni breaking recruiting rules and getting teams in trouble. The coach remained quiet through it all and asked Lashley what he thought he'd been doing the last 2 years. Barfield said Auburn has some quality players, and if they stay healthy and stay on the field, they'll have a chance to have a pretty good football team. On fan support, he said his travels to alumni meetings has shown him that fan support is better than at any time he's been at Auburn. This is Phil Snow on the SEC Skyriders Tour, Auburn, Alabama.
Only one person came to the public hearing to protest the budget as Mayor Falmer presented it 2 weeks ago. The Montgomery Community Action Agency, which received $10,000 from the city last year, wasn't included in this year's budget. An agency representative asked for more than $14,000. Council members voted to give the agency $10,000, taking that amount away from the $200,000 emergency reserve appropriation. Another change proposed for the budget was a conditional pay hike of up to $400 for common laborers and equipment operators. Councilman Reed made the proposal with the raise to go into effect only if the city takes in more money than is estimated. Mayor Falmer says all city workers already are getting a raise, and conditional appropriations are not fiscally sound.
I said in my budget message that this is election year, and there's a danger that elected officials during an election year forget that basic rules of arithmetic still apply. The arithmetic rules still apply, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and if you give this conditional raise this year, this time next year, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
The proposal was defeated with only Reed, Oliver, and Harris voting for it. The rest of the $41 million budget passed with little challenge. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
The McConnell family has been associated with Chrysler for 46 years, and Forrest McConnell Jr. says they never had a losing month. But the McConnell Dodge sign will be coming down soon. In fact, the only Dodge cars left on the lot are a few being sold at invoice price. McConnell has shifted his dealership to the hot-selling Honda cars and the more expensive BMW. His decision to change dealerships was based on several reasons, and not solely on Chrysler's financial problems.
Main thing is that Honda and BMW are much more responsive to the dealer's needs, and of course they've got very fine automobiles now.
How is as far as the financial situation Chrysler is in now, what kind of influence did that have?
It had some influence, but it wasn't the main influence. Frankly, it just wasn't, the corporation wasn't, we weren't getting the cooperation from Chrysler that we thought we needed to be successful.
Chrysler is seeking financial aid from the federal government, and according to a recent Chrysler newsletter, they are proceeding with a massive rebuilding campaign which will cost $8.5 billion over the next 5 years. But as far as this one Montgomery dealership is concerned, it's all a bit too late. Michael Jones, WSFA TV News.
Enthusiasm is high among football players at Robert E. Lee High School. The Generals have all but forgotten last year's dismal 4-5 season, and there's once again talk of a state championship. There is reason for that optimism. The Generals have Mike Miller at quarterback. He can throw and run the ball well. The running situation is not as rosy. Mark Dean and Eric Weber have potential, but little actual experience. The offensive line should help the runners, however. 5 starters return up front. On defense, the Generals will not be large, but Coach Boswell is hoping they will be quick.
We'll have more quickness on our defense than before, primarily because we feel like if you make a mistake and have the speed, you can recover and hold a play to a minimum gain. But if you are slow and make a mistake, then you're going to be hurting in 2 different areas.
These are nothing but memories for the Volunteers of Jeff Davis High, but oh, what sweet memories they must be. A perfect 4-0 season and the state for a championship. However, things could be a little bit different at Jeff Davis this year. Only 4 starters return, and the usually pessimistic Coach Billy Livings has reason for concern this year.
We lost about 30-some-odd kids, and not only that, we lost 2 good coaches, and we think we replaced the coaches. But, you know, they're starting on a new system for them, so we do have our problems this year trying to work out some things for our new people, new coaches, and new players.
What kind of problems do you have coming back with a basically inexperienced team?
Well, we've got a number of kids that have changed positions, moved from offense to defense, defensive offense, and things of that nature. We play a lot of musical chairs at this school until we get people where we want them. The problem would be trying to get them accustomed and acclimated to their new positions mostly.
We suffered from inflation. We operate our programs every day, all year long, and we have to provide food and utilities and clothes and medical expenses. There was a big increase in commitments this year. We're working with many more kids than we ever have before, and I think primarily that this led to the problem.
Do you have any plans to try to avert such as this next fiscal year?
Most definitely. I'm working daily with the governor's staff and with the finance department to try and ensure that this does not happen again next year.
Under state law, Dennis, the prison doctor or a physician in attendance on an inmate, if he has reason to believe that an inmate is mentally ill or mentally incompetent, he can report that fact to the governor. Then the governor can ask that doctor, along with 2 other people, to serve as a 3-member board to conduct an investigation and to make a report to the governor on whether or not they really believe the inmate is mentally ill. If their report indicates that the inmate is mentally ill, then the governor could request that the inmate be sent to a mental hospital to serve either the duration of his term or to serve until his mental illness is cured and then be sent back to the prison.
This scene won't be repeated here in Montgomery after September 30th. The Floridian route from Chicago to Miami is just one of 6 routes the Amtrak Board of Directors voted to discontinue. An Amtrak spokesman in Washington told Channel 12 News the Floridian failed to meet the criteria set by the Congress earlier this year. These criteria stipulate that any Amtrak route average at least 150 passengers per mile for the entire trip and cost less than 7 cents per passenger mile to operate. The Floridian averaged only 75 passengers per mile and cost 13.4 cents per mile. Amtrak officials were quick to point out, however, that the Floridian was not the most expensive route to be discontinued. The Hilltopper, running through West Virginia and Kentucky, averaged only 29 passengers per mile and cost Amtrak as much as 25 cents per mile. Dave Rickey, WSFA TV News.
The Cortland Airport in Lawrence County was used as a training base for pilots during World War II. In 1948, the federal government gave the 2,246 acres to the state of Alabama. The property came under the control of the state aeronautics department. Since then, parcels of the land have been rented to area farmers. The Tennessee Valley Authority approached the state aeronautics department in 1978 about buying the property. Jim Rowe, director of the department, says the TVA had some big plans.
They told us that they were interested in acquiring the property to build a new type plant to, let's say, produce energy.
What is coal gasification?
Coal gasification plan. They intimated it would cost roughly $1 billion and let's say would provide jobs for 3,000 to 5,000 people.
On August 1st, Governor Fob James gave his approval to this option agreement with the TVA. The next day, the governor's office asked for the contract back, saying there had been a mistake. Mike Waters, legal advisor to the governor, says they wanted an addition to the agreement to stipulate that the TVA use the property, as they have said, for the coal gasification plant. The state of Alabama may be close to closing the deal with the Tennessee Valley Authority for the selling of the Cortland property, but it hasn't come without some problems. And there are reports that this property was considered as a site for a prison in North Alabama, as well as a horse racing track for Lawrence County. More on that tomorrow.
Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol. This is an option agreement signed by the state with the TVA on August 1st. On August 2nd, the governor's office asked for it back. The agreement gave TVA an option to buy 2,246 acres of the old Cortland Airport in Lawrence County for $2.25 million. The governor's office wanted and will receive an additional paragraph stating that the TVA will use the land for a non-nuclear energy plant within 5 years. What has been called miscommunication within the governor's office on the signing of the contract has prompted dissatisfaction from some members of the State Aeronautics Commission who think Governor James has overstepped his authority. The commission actually oversees the property. There has also been speculation that the property was part of plans for a horse racing track for Lawrence County as well as a new state prison.
I do know that he considered one other project or one other possible use of a part of the land that would have involved prisons, but as to whether or not anything concerning horse racing was involved, I would frankly doubt it.
The sale of the Cortland land might not be over with the signing of a contract. One member of the Aeronautics Commission is said to have employed an attorney and is contemplating filing a class action suit against Governor Fob James for his actions in the land sale to TVA. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Senator Stewart attended an Alabama Forestry Commission meeting where State Forester C.W. Moody commended his proposal to provide money for making fuel from wood waste. Commissioners also discussed the pine beetle infestation, which continues to spread. Senator Stewart says he's concerned about the problem.
Of course, it's a serious problem here in Alabama because they're having some difficulty, and there's a period of time that you have to go through before you're able to arrest. What you have to go in to do is just cut the trees down and take them out. Bill Moody and them are working hard with the other forestry agencies in the state to do something about the problem. It costs us economically, and it's something that we've got to focus our attention on and do something about.
A Forestry Commission entomologist says property owners are responding to warnings and industry is tackling the problem with vigor. The Commission's toll-free informational Watts line averages 70 to 80 calls a week, mostly from homeowners. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
There's an air of confusion looming over Barber County and its school system. Following the resignation of the county school superintendent and the 5 Board of Education members, other county and state officials say it will take the next several weeks to move in and see what it will take to bail them out. County Commission Chairman George Taylor says the county governing body must wait perhaps another 2 to 3 days on an Attorney General's office opinion on a proposed $160,000 sales tax referendum that will be for the schools, which are $600,000 in debt. Taylor says other avenues of aid will be discussed by the county commissioners at their September 4th meeting. The State Department of Education has assigned some administrative aid to see what it can do to prevent Barber County schools from delaying the beginning of their school year any longer. County school parking lots are empty. Teachers face a possible month without pay, and the students must stay out of the classrooms at least through the 1st of October. Barber County officials say that the financial problems with their school system are much greater than they had first thought. They say the cures are uncertain, but will definitely include a lot of time and a great many concessions. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News, Barber County.
Last year this time, Georgia coach Vince Dooley told the Skyriders his team was the Pits. But you know what happened. 9 wins, 2 losses, and a tie, and a trip to the Bluebonnet Bowl. Dooley says his team was very fortunate last year, even downright lucky. He says there will probably be a better team this year, but he doesn't see how they can be that lucky again. The Dogs do look good. They have the best 1-2 quarterback situation in the conference in Jeff Pyburn and Buck Ballou. Their wideouts are outstanding. There are some potential all-stars in that offensive line. The only drawback on offense is that they don't have the great running back. Willie McClendon is gone. Dooley says the defense will be weaker early, but better as the season goes along. Total it all up, and you have to put the Dogs in the chase for Vince Dooley's 4th conference title. This is Phil Snow winding up the Southeastern Conference Skyriders Tour in Athens, Georgia.
Coach, Phil, we have Coach Boswell with us. For some unexplained reason, Coach Little was unable to make it. The team a little late in showing up. But Coach Boswell, as Phil mentioned, certainly a very good rivalry in the history of Montgomery High School football, and one that unfortunately the Generals have lost the past couple years.
Yes, but we're not looking back. We're looking forward to this one in particular.
Coming off a losing season last year, I guess this is a big game for you to try to get a winning emphasis right from the start.
This game is very important to us, and we feel like this really dictates the kind of season you will have the rest of the year.
You'll be up against one of the better quarterbacks in the state tonight in the Poets, Pete Daniel. Any special plans to contain him?
Well, we're going to have to rely heavily on our defense for the first 2 or 3 ball games anyway. We feel like we have more experience there than any other part of our team. Of course, as you know, we cannot rely solely on defense. You must have one of your other special teams working, and we're going to hope that our offense will come around in this particular situation.
You've put in a quicker defense this year, haven't you?
Yes, we have gone to quickness rather than bigness, and I think this is going to help us in our attempt to contain our quarterback tonight.
Okay, Phil, that's a quick look at Lee Lanier game. Coach Little is here. If we have just another few seconds. Coach Little, could we have a few words on the game tonight?
Well, I've been having this nightmare for the whole week about a big red train running over us. And I hope that nightmare doesn't come true tonight.
Well, we'll be here to see if it comes through. We'll have a report for you at 10 o'clock. Lee Lanier at the Crampton Bowl tonight. Phil?
Hello, Coach.
It was the first game of the season for both ball clubs, and the usual amount of mistakes were made. For Carver, that translates into fumbles. The Wolverines coughed up the ball 7 times last night. This one in the first quarter set up Jeff Davis' first score of the game. The Volunteers also had a case of the dropsies. They fumbled the ball 3 times. However, when you win 28-6, those fumbles don't seem so crucial. On the positive side of the ledger for the Volunteers was the play of number 21, Willie May. Jeff Davis may have found themselves a workhorse in May. Small tailback carried the ball 18 times for 114 yards. Tim Bethay proved himself a capable signal caller. The Carver quarterback ran with authority, and passes like this one removed any question of his ability to throw the ball. However, neither club looked like state champions last night, but the season has just begun. How much improvement the teams make will decide their fate this year. Fred Albers, WSFA TV Sports.
According to Cooper, the main reason for the dramatic increase is a change of federal regulations. Food stamps are now issued free of charge to those who qualify. Along with an increase in the number of persons participating comes an increase in the amount of food stamps issued. In this case, the records show about $9 million worth issued in November of 1978 and just over $17 million worth given out last month. Cooper pointed out with this dramatic increase in participants, there has been no likewise increase in staff to handle the extra load. He says they need more staffers, even in the face of a request from Governor James to trim budgets by 5%.
Well, I think that our budget cutback probably won't come in the area of personnel savings. But I think that as we increase the number of personnel, we will be able to do a better job, cut down on error rates, and reduce fraud, and consequently have a saving much greater than 5%.
Cooper says the increase in food stamps also increases the overall economy in the state, with the average food stamp dollar turning over more than 6 times. He says if trends continue, this year alone the food stamp program would have contributed over $1 billion to the state's economy. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Mayor Emery Farmer gave his share of blood today. Red Cross workers say they have called in all the donors on their lists, and they're still low on blood.
We have had several cases that have used blood more than we usually do. We've had a shortage of blood donations probably due to the last week of summer, the first week of school, and everybody's doing their thing, getting their kids back in school and going out of town for the last weekend. Normally we try to plan ahead and have special donors called in, and we have done that, and they have come, and we have still distributed more blood than usual for this period of time in the year.
Why is this weekend especially critical?
Since it's Labor Day weekend, any holiday weekend, we try to have extra on the shelf. If when we're going into the middle of the week without the extra, then we have to plan ahead. We don't wait for the accidents to happen and then ask us for blood. It's our job to have the blood ahead of the accidents or whenever they might need it.
Because of the shortage, the Red Cross Donor Center will be open to take blood Saturday from 11 to 5 and Sunday from 1 to 5. Though workers hope the blood won't be needed, they must be prepared for the many accidents that usually accompany a weekend holiday. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.
Let's say this is the Dreamboat used car you've been wanting for so long. How can you be sure that you won't be purchasing someone else's lemon? The Federal Trade Commission is debating the proposed trade regulation rule on used cars. If approved, it would require used car dealers to have a detailed condition list of almost every part of the vehicle. The information would be in sticker form on the car's windshield.
When a consumer goes on the lot, you can look at that list and tell whether it has bad brakes, whether it has the engineering system is bad, whether any mechanisms or any mechanical parts of the vehicle is not functioning properly. Dealers have a choice of either doing that or they can put on the vehicle that it is an as-is sale. Consumers have very little understanding as to what as-is transactions mean, and it means just that what you see is what you're getting.
However, there is stiff opposition to the proposal. Both the National and Alabama Independent Automobile Dealers Associations say the measure will do more harm than good. Alabama Association President Doug Hallman estimates if the proposal becomes law, consumers could pay several $100s more for used cars. He says that's what it would cost dealers to comply with the bureaucratic red tape. Consumers and used car dealers are waiting for an FTC decision on the matter, which is expected by the first of the year. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Near the end of July, this petition, which we agreed to show only in an envelope to protect those who signed it, was delivered to State Auditor Betty Frink. It asked for an audit of Hobson City near Anniston. A few days later, this letter from Governor Fob James was also received by Mrs. Frink. Governor James said his office had talked with representatives of Hobson City, and there was an obvious, desperate need for an immediate audit of the city's finances. Despite a 2-year waiting list for audits, Mrs. Frink said her staff began the examination immediately.
We were there 2 weeks and had not received the records we felt like we should have had that we usually have within 2 weeks. We did not have any hostility. Everyone was nice and kind, but we were not receiving the records that we felt we needed. So therefore, we asked the Attorney General to subpoena the records.
On August 20th, this subpoena was served on Hobson City City Manager J.L. Stringer for bank accounts, checks, purchase orders, tax records, council minutes, payroll statements, and more. Mrs. Frink says this is unusual, but it has happened before. The records were taken to the Attorney General's Annex in Montgomery, where they are kept under lock and key. One of several field auditors is slowly sifting through the boxes and boxes of material, trying to piece together the recent financial history of Hobson City. Auditors did not discuss the specifics of the documents contained in this building that are being gone over by the investigators, but we have been told that the audit could turn out to be similar to others performed recently on cities in the state where financial mismanagement was found. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
In 1975, the state legislature passed a law that set up the rules and guidelines for the optometric industry. Since that time, optometrists and ophthalmologists have differed on the interpretation of that law. The Healing Arts Board, speaking on behalf of ophthalmologists, says that law prohibits optometrists from administering or prescribing drugs to their patients. The University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Optometry disagrees.
The main problem, of course, that the state government is concerned about is the welfare of its citizens and the health protection provided to them, and the fact that particularly the ophthalmologists in the state don't believe necessarily that optometrists should be prescribing drugs and administering drugs because they may not be educationally qualified to do so.
No suit has been filed yet, and Hardistry says it will probably be another month or so before anything definite is set up. The suit, when it's filed, will reportedly not seek any damages, but only a declaratory judgment. The suit will probably be filed in Jefferson County since the UAB school is in Birmingham. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Yeah, I've had offers from a couple other organizations and filling in some instructing jobs or scouting jobs, and I've had an offer from Detroit, but as the season's still going on, nothing was specific, so I'll get together with them in September, October sometime and get squared away.
In addition to the constitutional duty to keep tabs on what the state spends, the state auditor's office also performs requested audits of cities, counties, and other state and local governmental agencies. State Auditor Betty Frink says some audits have been on hold for as much as 2 years. The reason? Not enough staff. Mrs. Frink says she's talked to Governor Fob James about the situation, and she indicated that he was interested in including the auditor's office as an integral part of his idea of accountability. Something else Mrs. Frink says they need is special legislation.
By law, the municipalities should have an audit done yearly. Some of them don't, some of them do. But we want legislation to require that they file their audit report with the auditor's office. Therefore, they will have to have it done. Systematically, we can review these audits. We can more or less monitor them. And on a first-hand basis, we can see if there's something that needs to be checked into further. And we'd have to be funded to do this. We'd have to have legislation requiring the cities file their audit reports with the state auditor's office. We think this is a step forward, and we think it's very much needed. I believe our governor is for this because, like I said, he stands for accountability. That's his program, and we have hopes that we're going to get some help in this office to do something for the people of Alabama that we have not been able to do to the extent we should in the past.
In any case, State Auditor Betty Frink says they need more money to do a better job, even in the face of a requested 5% budget cutback. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Almost every day, consumers are swamped with advertised specials. In the newspaper, on television, and radio, merchants offer savings on everything from food to furniture. Herbert Bridgewater, Jr. with the Atlanta Regional Office of the Federal Trade Commission says the government ensures consumers will get the advertised price even if the product is sold out.
There's a law that's called sellout. It's called supermarket specials. And I'm sure that many consumers have seen advertised, for example, pineapples for $4, chicken 69 cents a breast, portion, or whatever the sale is. If in that case something is advertised in the paper, consumers go into the grocery store or to whatever store to purchase the particular item and it is not in stock, they should ask for a rain check. They have a right to obtain a rain check or get a substituted product for that, one of equal value. The only instance in which they will not be able to obtain a rain check is when it's specified in the advertisement that no rain checks will be offered.
Bridgewater says many shoppers feel it's too much trouble or don't want to bother with the rain check, even though the extra time could save some money. Paul Roth, WSFA TV News.
Favorable for some further strengthening at noon. Instructions and see your dealer who handles ambush for the details. Remember, you can't get better cotton insect control than ambush. Hurricane David now appears to be headed for eastern Cuba, the Bahamas, and possibly southern Florida. The storm reported direct hit in the capital city of the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. Officials are still working to
If you're planning on getting out of the city of Montgomery for the 3-day holiday weekend, then it's going to take a little bit of planning on your part. According to AAA, most of the people who did not take a summer vacation will probably take one this holiday weekend. If driving is your way of escaping from the city, then gas availabilities are the point of concern, and AAA says gas will be available, although not plentiful. Downtown gasoline stations are expected to be closed, but in the suburbs and on highways, some 10 to 20% of the stations are expected to be open. Gas prices are between $1 and $1.05 for premium unleaded at full-service stations, but they are well below $1 at the self-service pumps. The state troopers say they'll be out in force this weekend, but their statistics indicate that the traffic fatalities will be down 14% over last year's figure. Troopers are expecting 13 weekend traffic fatalities. Traveling by air will be tough unless you already have flight reservations. Most of the flights out of Montgomery to Atlanta are booked solid. A few of the airlines have limited availabilities on flights through Memphis. Both of the bus services say they have plenty of spaces open and don't anticipate any problems getting people tickets to any of their destinations. The rail services are also free of crowds. Within the state of Alabama, the Alabama Super Parks, which are run by the state, say they are expecting some booming business, but say room availabilities exist, but they suggest you call ahead. And for those of you who don't have anywhere to go this 3-day holiday weekend, there's always the annual Coon Dog Cemetery Decoration and Barbecue in Cherokee, Alabama. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
The morale was so low, the AP report says there was a meeting of Governor Fob James' top aides to resolve the problem. The meeting reportedly lasted over 2 hours and did not include the governor. It ended with the feeling among the aides that the problem was well on its way to being corrected. According to one staff member, the problem is a lack of communication between the governor's chief of staff, Judson Salter, and the staff James hired Salter to supervise. Others on the staff say the problem goes beyond communications. The AP report quotes some as saying Salter's business approach to running the governor's office is not the same business-like manner in which Governor James is trying to run state government. Also resented has been Salter's habit of checking offices at 8 a.m. daily to make sure, in the words of another staffer, we're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. To Salter, one staff member says, traffic in the hall means no one is in the office working. According to the AP report, Salter's hall watch has, in fact, led to a standing joke. When staffers or executive assistants meet in the hall, they laughingly ask, "Have you got a hall pass?" The problem has festered over the last few weeks, reaching a point at which quite a few staffers began considering whether to look for employment elsewhere. The meeting reportedly buoyed spirits, at least among the top aides who attended the session. Salter is pitching too, according to the governor's aides. He's trying to find the middle ground. Governor James' press secretary, John Hamm, says the whole affair has been blown out of proportion. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
The typical victims and killers are black between the ages of 19 and 30 years old who are poor and with little education. The Law Enforcement Planning Agency says 85 out of every 1,000 American black males are victims of black-on-black crime, especially murder, while only 75 out of every 1,000 white males are destined to be crime victims. Montgomery Attorney Charles Price, a former county prosecutor, was raised on this city's west side, the scene of many of the black-on-black homicides. We talked about the problem as we toured the Greyhound Day Street area.
When you lock a group of people into a particular area and high density and lack of opportunities, and they know no matter how hard to work, if they do work, and no matter how much education they get, if they do get an education, that the doors are still blocked and boarded, it creates self-hatred for each other, frustration, and I think you have a tendency then when something develops and you're frustrated to strike out against the person that's next to you, and invariably it happened to be a black person that is next to the person who is accused of committing a crime. I think all of these ingredients go into making a minimum situation to become very violent, and unfortunately a crime is committed as a result of that.
Several years ago, a local church sponsored a project designed to cut down on the black-on-black murder rate here in Montgomery, but it has started to rise once again.
To further amplify the seriousness of the situation, a national publication printed statistics recently. They showed that more blacks died in 1977 being killed by other blacks than all the black servicemen who died in Vietnam. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Labor Day weekend always has been a time for families to take one last vacation before the school year and fall activities begin. But automobile traffic has been light all summer due to gas shortages, so it came as a surprise to some that there have been so many travelers this weekend. A spot check shows that many service stations are open, especially those along highways. At least one station owner says business is good.
We found this weekend has probably been the best weekend of the whole summer season, possibly due to the fact that the gasoline shortage maybe is not quite as severe as we once thought, but traffic has seemed to come out since the middle of the week for this big Labor Day weekend.
How are your supplies?
I have adequate gasoline.
Are you surprised at the kind of traffic that you've seen?
Certainly have been. With the reservations most people had at the 4th of July and the early part of the summer, and not wanting to venture too far from home, not knowing if they could get fuel or not to get home, that we found that this summer, as a rule, has been a good bit off of last summer.
But this weekend is still off from last Labor Day.
No, this weekend is better than last Labor Day.
Another indication of the heavy traffic is the death toll. With several hours left in the holiday weekend, at least 14 persons have died in traffic accidents in Alabama. State troopers had predicted lighter traffic and fewer deaths because of the gas shortages, but it appears that travelers are taking vacations which they had put off during the summer when gas supplies were at their lowest. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News.